Do you ever feel like you're not improving as a photographer no matter how much you invest in new gear, or how many YouTube videos you watch, or even how many answers you get on Facebook? Unfortunately, there's a chance you're falling victim to the common myths and misconceptions that I see over and over being told to new photographers. Welcome to the Photo Mentor series. In this series, I share decades of real-world experience as a commercial photographer and mentor to help you to see like an artist. In the previous episode, I outlined 3 types of photographers in order to help you decide where you fit. In the upcoming episodes, I'm going to cover the 3 biggest myths of why your photography is not improving and the solutions to overcome them. Today, I'm going to start with the number 1 reason why photographers are frustrated, overwhelmed, and many, frankly, just want to give up. And that is because they are told shooting on manual mode will make you a better photographer. Now, look, before you get your claws out and your hackles up, let me be clear. I'm not saying there are not times when manual mode makes sense. But what I am saying is that if you're a new photographer, do not feel pressure starting out on shooting on manual mode. Now, I know this goes against everyone on Facebook and even most of the experts on YouTube. And all I can ask is this: hear me out, try it for yourself before you discount my advice, and here's why. This works. I have taught this to thousands of photographers in my career. Now, I'll go into more detail, but the simple reason it works is this. It's because of a method I developed called STEPS, which stands for seeing, telling, exposing, processing, and success. See, what I noticed is when I was teaching the old school manual method, it ignored the most important aspect of why we became photographers to begin with: creativity. But more on that in a minute. Here are the 3 reasons why shooting on manual is a myth. Number 1, manual mode does not make you a better photographer. Manual mode turns your $2,000 or whatever camera into a 1976 manual film camera effectively. So what happens is when you shoot on manual, it effectively disconnects the camera's light meter, the brain, from its ability to assist you in exposure. This is like putting a blindfold on the camera. The camera no longer knows how much light is hitting the sensor. It could be aimed at the sun, or you could have the lens cap on, and the camera wouldn't know. Here's an example of 2 images that were shot on manual. I see these every day on Facebook groups. Now, when you look at these 2 images, what you'll see is, why would anyone want to start out on manual? You can underexpose or overexpose images so easily shooting on manual if you don't know what's going on. Now, the funny thing is, no modern camera would ever shoot photos like this on auto or program, probably even on a aperture or shutter priority. Even if you close your eyes and held the camera up and push the button, it's still going to take a better picture than that. The second reason you don't want to shoot, that's a myth, is shooting on manual allows you to be more creative. Again, that's not true. I've seen many new photographers literally in tears because they were told they have to shoot in manual mode. Creative people in the arts tend to be more in the moment. They have the ability to translate their emotions and feelings into music, painting, and photography. Those are thought to be more right hemisphere functions of the brain. When a new photographer starts out in manual, this is much more of a logical, scientific left brain function. Now, this happens to all of us, no matter how skilled we become. But what happens is your mental energy is on the camera settings rather than the subject, and as a result, we often miss stuff that's happening right in front of our camera. So, look, it's hard enough to do photography, to be creative without having to worry about the technology. Let me ask you a question. If you were tasked to teach a teenager to drive, would you require them to first learn to drive a manual transmission vehicle, change the oil, all before allowing them to read the rules of the road, the laws, or guidelines on defensive driving? No, of course not. Why? because modern vehicles have evolved to a point where they often can do a much better job of shifting than we can in a manual transmission. Look, you want to build confidence with a new driver. In order to get that new driver excited about driving, it's important that they have some success right out of the gate. When they're able to go to the store and back and smoothly and safely, you want them focusing on the road and other traffic, not the mechanics of driving the car. Now, if you've never learned to drive a car or manual transmission, maybe you can't relate, but it can be very overwhelming. It takes a lot of practice to coordinate the gas, the clutch, and the shifter, especially, by the way, if you're on a hill. The same is true for a photographer. My goal when mentoring you is to encourage you, to help you to see positive results as quickly as possible. By focusing on the results and not the techno-babble, you realize you can shoot successful images. You build up confidence. And this can make a huge difference in your ability to want to continue as a photographer. A common question I get, which I have to laugh at, is, why are my photos from my phone better than my DSLR? See, to me, this proves my point. The phone completely eliminates any adjustments, so the photographer is focused solely on the subject. Now, before getting into the third reason why shooting on manual is a myth, let me review. Number one reason that's a myth about shooting on is that manual does not make you a better photographer. The second myth is shooting on manual allows you to be more creative. And the third myth is you must shoot on manual to have complete control over your camera. I mean, every camera has modes you can be creative in. Aperture priority, shutter priority, auto, even program. Here's a quick overview of the reasons the STEPS method works. In the 30 plus years, I've never had a client ask me or care about the technology I'm using. The reason I was hired for a job is because of my unique vision and my creativity I bring to a project. When I'll go into an ad agency and show them my portfolio, I'll meet with usually an art director or a creative director, and I'll show my portfolio, which is in the industry is called a book. They'll always stop on my personal project. And the reason is they want to know how I see the world. They want to know about my creativity. And they know by the projects that I put together myself, that I essentially produced, they want to know how I can help their clients. So it doesn't matter if you're shooting a newborn or a family portrait or an ad campaign. They want you. They want you because of how you view the world. Look, most consumers can buy the same gear you and I have. In fact, some even maybe have more expensive camera gear. They certainly have a phone that's capable. But they're not hiring you because of the sharpness of the lens or the make of the camera or the blurry background that every new photographer thinks that makes their work look so professional. They're hiring you. They want the way you see the world. I hate to break it to you, but basic photography has not changed in over 200 years. There are only 4 things you can change on any camera: aperture, shutter, focus, and ISO. And if you want to make it 5, you could add zoom or focal length, but that's it. So unfortunately, you can learn the exposure triangle backwards and forwards, but it will not make you a more creative photographer. Look, hopefully you're starting to have your eyes open a little bit of why learning to see will make you a better photographer. This is why the STEPS program is so successful, because it starts with teaching you to see and to tell better stories, not camera dials and buttons. Look, let me be clear. I'm not saying at some point having a basic understanding about the relationship between aperture, shutter, and ISO is not going to be helpful. But what I am saying is that learning to see and tell better stories trumps technology every time. Now, in the next few episodes, I'm going to go into a lot more detail on 2 more of the common myths that are sadly told to new photographers. If you only take away one thing from this series, it would be, if you want to be more successful, quit trying to learn photography and start to learn the language of visual storytelling. If you want more information, go to photomentor.com. photographyacademy.com/steps. As always, thank you very much for your support and for your questions and for watching. I read every comment. So if you want to ask me a question, please leave a comment below.